Welcome to Maldef's 2018 Washington, D.C. Awards Gala. I'm honored to be your host this evening. On behalf of Maldef, we thank each of you for joining us. Tonight, of course, would not be possible without your support. Some of you here know me. My name is Claudia Curiel. I'm a reporter and anchor for Telemundo 44. Which is actually our new name. We used to be Telemundo Washington, D.C. And as part of our changes, we've also expanded our newscast, which is part of our commitment to help the Latino community by informing them. And now you can see us at 5, 5:30, 6, and 11. And of course, that's very exciting. And you know, when I was here last year, I told a little story, which I think is worth mentioning again. What Maldef does here tonight is so important because it recognizes Latino leaders in the community. But what's really necessary is to recognize that Hispanic heroes have been around not just recently, but from the very beginning of the United States. I don't know if any of you know, but it was, in fact, a Hispanic general that helped George Washington win the Revolutionary War. Did any of you know? If you did, it's because I told you last year. And in fact, he was such a key part of helping the United States win its independence from Great Britain that they promised to hang up his portrait in the Capitol. And they didn't do this until 200 years later when this woman found out the story and she insisted that they do. And that's what we have to do. We have to insist that our Hispanic heroes be recognized. There's so many of them, countless, that are completely forgotten in history, unsung, and it's up to us to find them and make sure everyone is aware that Hispanics not just are here because they recently crossed the border, we have been here for centuries, and we have been contributing to this country from the very beginning until now. And because of that, I'm honored to be here tonight to celebrate the victories of the Latino community with an organization that in August of 2018 will mark 50 years at the forefront of civil rights and community empowerment. We have a great program lined up and amazing honorees this evening, but before we recognize them, I want to share some important information about Maldef. Maldef opened its doors in 1968 in San Antonio, Texas, following coordinated efforts by Latino lawyers and community activists from throughout the southwestern United States to create a legal organization to serve the Latino community. Maldef's victories throughout the decades have immeasurably benefited the Latino community, working to secure its right to a meaningful vote, to equal educational opportunity, to non-discriminatory workplaces, and to fairness and justice in government services. Maldef has championed the rights of immigrants over many decades, including the organization's landmark 1982 Supreme Court victory in Plyer versus Doe, which guaranteed the right to a free K-12 education for all children, regardless of immigration status. Maldef's efforts have also resulted in federal and state laws that are more respectful of civil and constitutional rights. As a Latino legal voice for civil rights in America, Maldef has helped bring about significant gains in civil rights in this country. But of course, we still have a long road ahead, but we're grateful to have Maldef leading the fight in our courts to secure a better quality of life for Latinos throughout our great nation. And we're grateful to have your support of this very important work. Our program this evening will celebrate the careers and accomplishments of several outstanding individuals who have dedicated themselves to safeguarding and expanding the civil rights of the Latino community. As you'll see in here, we owe them a great deal for their selflessness and courage. But before we begin, please turn your attention to the video screens. We have a short message from Verizon.
Estamos hechos de muchas cosas. Productos, promociones, redes. Pero hay más que eso. ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? Somos un grupo de personas. Personas que creen algo. Que ayudar a nuestros clientes. Hace la diferencia para
So, as a reporter in Washington, D.C., it's very common for me to cover rallies, protests, and events defending the immigrant community. And almost as common is to see a certain congressman there supporting them. But tonight, we're honored to have him here as our keynote speaker, and I'm talking about Illinois Congressman Luis Gutierrez. He is now in his 12th term in the House of Representatives. Congressman Gutierrez is the dean of the Illinois Congressional Delegation. He was first elected to president the 4th District of Illinois in 1992, and since then has been a tireless spokesman for his constituents in the heart of Chicago and a prominent advocate for Latinos nationwide. Congressman Gutierrez has been at the center of every major legislative debate on immigration reform and immigration issues for more than a dozen years. He serves as the chairman of the Immigration Task Force, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and he is a member of the Immigration and Border Security Subcommittee of the House Judiciary Committee. He was also a key force in advocating the Obama administration's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals initiative. Through legislation and advocacy, Congressman Gutierrez is among the nation's strongest leaders in the continuing battle to push back against the rising tide of anti-immigrant policies and rhetoric. Married and both a father and grandfather, Congressman Gutierrez was born and raised in Chicago to parents who had migrated to Chicago from Puerto Rico in the early 1950s. He previously served as an alderman in the city of Chicago and has been a teacher and social worker, among other diverse experiences. It is now my honor to welcome to the stage tonight's keynote speaker, Congressman Luis Gutierrez.
Thank you. It's great to be here tonight with all of you and with all of my friends here at Maldef. To your General Counsel and your President, Tom, thank you for extending the warm invitation. To Marielena, who I guess to sit next to, and to so many wonderful friends here tonight, thank you for having me here this evening. I can't think of a better place to be. I want to just tell you why I was so quick in responding when I was invited to be here tonight, because actually I'm like un hijo de Maldef. Now don't mistranslate that later on. I mean from the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund. In the 1980s, in the city of Chicago, there was finally one Latino. Of course, he was put there by the Democratic Party machine, so he didn't speak up very much for Latino issues or for our community. We all know and have seen those types of Latino elected officials. There are fewer and fewer of them each and every day. But that was Chicago, and they redid the districts, and lo and behold, they only found room enough for one city council district out of 50. And then the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, that had offices in Chicago and of course nationally, sued. And I want to tell you something. Because of that, in 1986 there were special elections, and there were 4 new, not one, we went from 1 to 4. Today there are 9. And there are even more majority Latino districts. I'm just talking about the ones that are represented by Latinos. As we all know, there are many Latino districts, cities, towns, villages, where we are the majority in which a Latino is not elected to serve. Because one of the things we have to understand, especially here tonight at Maldef, is that the work that Maldef does is to give an opportunity. There is no guarantee, but to give us the opportunity to be able to serve. Because before Maldef, the doors were simply closed. And that is what we deserve as an opportunity, and that's what I came here to say tonight. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve. Thank you for allowing Latinos to come together and vote as one. We went to church together. We shopped at the grocery store together. Our kids went to the same schools, but we could not vote together until the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund came to Chicago and made sure we had city council representation. And so I think it's important to understand, especially the many benefactors here tonight that are helping from our corporate and non-corporate community that are helping Maldef, about where the money goes and why it is important. And ever more important today than it's ever been in my more than 30 years of public service. I know you all look at me and say, can't be no 64 years old. You're not supposed to laugh. You're supposed to say, no, you don't. You look so young. Okay, you're not going to do that for me. That's okay. But my point is this. I've been elected since 1986. The first time I ran was 1984. I got a whopping 24.8% of the vote. But I learned a lot. Luckily, 2 years later, as I described, we had new city council seats. But I want to share something else with you. The Democratic nominee from the 4th Congressional District, which I am pretty sure is going to replace me in the next Congress of the United States, was from the 22nd Ward in 1986, Jesus Garcia. He went on to become a state senator, a Cook County commissioner, and soon will serve in Congress. So, estaba bien, parieron dos. Luis y Chuy. Y todo el mundo tiene un Chuy en su vida, ¿verdad? Sí, todos tenemos un Chuy en nuestra vida. My point is this. He will soon, and think about how great it's going to be, that Jesus Chuy Garcia is going to come to the Congress of the United States in 2019, un hijo de bracero. Su papá vino aquí de bracero. Cruzó esa frontera legalmente a trabajar en este país y finalmente pudo traer a su hijo y su madre aquí a este país. Y pensar que el hijo de un bracero que llegó aquí con nada, que se diera residente permanente, que un día se hizo ciudadano, hoy va a ser congresista en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. That's the 4th Congressional District. And you say, well, why are you bringing it up, Luis? Well, I'm bringing it up because one of the arguments we made was in Chicago, we have Pilsen and Little Village in the back of the yards. And that's predominantly Mexicano. And on the north side, we had Humboldt Park and we had Wicker Park. And that's predominantly Puerto Rican. But one of the arguments we made was what? That we are a community of common interests. And the fact that Luis Gutierrez could be elected to the Congress and now Jesus Garcia is demonstrative of the common interests that exist. But it's about opportunity, everybody. That's what Maldef does. It opens the door and it makes the playing field a playing field that gives us the opportunity to win and to succeed. But it's upon us to take advantage of those opportunities. What do I mean by that? In 1992, there were two candidates. There was Juan Solis, and if you see Juan Solis, the brother was stone Mexicano, right? I mean, he had la gorrita, la bota, everything, right? And he was like a foot taller than me, right? Then you had the curly-haired Puerto Rican on the north side. And, everybody knew, right, as soon as you open your mouth, And he wouldn't concede the election. I got 64% of the vote, but he wouldn't concede the election because he was looking around and he was saying, but I'm getting 90% of the vote. And he was in Pilsen and in Little Village. He was getting, it was like 211 to 4 for me. What he didn't see was that on the north side in the Puerto Rican neighborhood, I was getting 90% of the vote. It was 211 for me and 4 for him. You say, why would I bring up this story of division? Well, because in 1992, it was actually non-Hispanics who determined who the first congressman from the 4th Congressional District was going to be. 26 years later, 60% of the registered voters are Latino in the 4th Congressional District. We helped 50,000, I want to repeat that, 50,000 people become citizens since the day I was elected to Congress, and now we are the majority of the voters in the 4th Congressional District. So we took advantage of the opportunity. And mucha gente me decía, ay, Gutiérrez, pero ¿por qué tú estás ayudando a los mexicanos a hacerse ciudadanos? ¿Van a hacer tu fin? Se van a hacer ciudadanos, van a votar y van a buscar un... And it never happened. Because we are a community of common interests, it never happened. What I did was enjoy incredible support from la comunidad mexicana. What I did was tremendous support from the Guatemalan, from the Colombian community. What I did was tremendous support from my own Puerto Rican community. And 26 years later, I want to do some other stuff. I want to talk to you just a moment about that. But before I go there, I just want you to see that today the kind of power that exists in the 4th Congressional District. Jesus Garcia won with 68% of the vote. He's going to come to Congress. He's going to speak truth here in Washington, D.C. And I'm excited about that possibility, but I'm also excited that he knows que cuando él habla, hay una fuerza latina detrás de él en la comunidad. Que él no se tiene que estar preocupando que hay suficiente votante. Hay suficiente votante porque nosotros no somos la mayoría en población, somos la mayoría en poder en distrito número 4. Y esa es la excelencia política que nosotros tenemos que buscar en todo el país. Excelencia. It's not about numbers, it's about power. And making sure you achieve that power. So, they said I was a grandfather. It's one of the proudest things that I am. So my grandson is Luis Andres Figueroa. And Luis Andres Figueroa's dad's from Mexico. It was almost as though my daughter wanted to replicate the 4th Congressional District. Si tú ves a Omaira con su pelo rizito, ¿ah? I mean, you know the girl es boricua, 100%. Pero tú sabes, el amor no sabe, doesn't know these spaces that sometimes we and the other generations knew, right? Today's generation, they don't know it, right? That's why they say it's Latinx, right? I'm learning. Anyways, the two of them together gave me Luis Andres. Y sabe algo, yo le pregunté a Luis, yo le dije, Luis, ¿cómo tú te sientes? Because Luis, you know, he eats pozole and arroz con gandules in the same day. No. He says, órale y qué chévere. And it doesn't. Because he's a reflection of who we are, culturally, linguistically, and in every fashion. And I like it, right? Because being together, we have so much more power, right? Than putting ourselves in our own silos. And I asked him, I said, Luis, ¿cómo tú te sientes, nieto? Y me dijo, Grandpa, in this arm, I feel Puerto Rican in this arm. I said, good. And he says, in this one, I feel real Mexican. And I said, what a great thing, because I grew up in the 50s and in the early 60s, right? Not feeling very confident with some self-loathing, right? About who you were, right? Always wanting to be something other than who you were. And here I see this new grandson of mine saying, me siento puertorriqueño, me siento mexicano. And then he took his hands, but Grandpa, right here, and he put his hands over his heart, I'm 100% American. And that's who our kids are. And that's, for me, that's what Latinos are. You know, they're the composite, right, of where their grandpa came from and what they eat, and they're proud of it. Unlike those of us who grew up again in the 50s, right, where fathers knows best and leave it to Beaver, where we wouldn't know it was cool to be Latino, right? But they do. They have a sense of pride in their background. And you know something? I have to protect that kid's patrimony. His right to grow up in America as an equal to anybody else, and not to be demeaned and demonized by a president of the United States that says that Mexicans are murderers, rapists, and drug dealers. No, he's not. He's my grandson. And he deserves a future in America. And he deserves to be challenged on the content of his character and not where his grandparents came from. And so I want to tell you all, we have to work for all of the Luisitos and for all of the Marias. They're counting on us to make sure this America is there for them and gives them the kind of opportunity, right, that I was given because Maldef came to Chicago. Because they came to Chicago and they sued, and they came back for the 4th Congressional District, which I represented. So I guess you gave birth to me twice. I have a lot to be grateful for. And so that's why it was really quick for me to come back here. Because a lot of times people think of institutions in Washington, D.C., and what difference do they make? They make a huge difference. I came to the Congress of the United States to fight for our community. And my mom and dad, yeah, they came as migrants from Puerto Rico. And they said that my mom and dad came here for welfare, that my mom and dad were criminally their criminal backgrounds. They talked about the Puerto Ricans when you can check this out, right? And that we brought tropical diseases. You know, maybe there was no one to stand up for my mom and dad when they came in 1953, but they raised a son to stand up for people who live in equal conditions that they live in today in this America. We're not going to allow history to repeat itself. And that's the purpose of what we're doing. That's the purpose of political empowerment and fighting against discrimination. Lastly, look, we have to be together. Because before you can ask other people to come and help you, you have to put your own house in order. And before you can go and join other people, you have to have your own house in order. But we're doing that more and more every day. I came to Congress of the United States, and right now I see the kids at Parkland High School, and they mobilize millions across this country. The day after the inauguration of the president, the women in America mobilized millions in America. Remember when our Muslim brothers and sisters were told they couldn't come into the country? And we mobilized all over this country to say they deserve to be let in, and we're going to stand up for them. We need to stand up for our transgender community that's being attacked in the armed services of the United States community, and for our LGBTQ community. We need to stand up for them. We need to stand up, too, for our women, because my daughters, Omaira and Jessica, are two great, dynamic women, proud, independent, courageous. Everybody in this room would just love them because they represent that vitality and strength de la mujer latina, como es la alcaldesa de San Juan, Carmen Yulín. And why do I say that? Because my wife and I, we inculcated in them the best values, the best examples, the best education. And you know, I'll be damned if a man in Washington, D.C. is going to tell them what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Their mom and their dad trust them. And nobody should come in the way in terms of making their decision. So whether it's women in America, or our Muslim community in America, or our LGBTQ community in America, whether it's those fighting for fair and decent wages, or to make sure that the Mother Earth is still going to be here for generations to come. All of us fighting together. And yes, the youth in America. I remember in 1972, it was the first time I got to vote. It was the first election cycle that they let 18-year-olds. Y tenían miedo. Uy, ¿qué van a hacer los de 18? They're not mature enough to vote. Well, guess what? Here's the two things I want to do going forward when I leave Congress. A, I want to spend a lot of time in Wisconsin, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan, helping tens of thousands of immigrants become citizens of the United States of America. And I want to erase that gap that exists, especially with our youth. 1 million Latinos turn 18, and Luis Gutierrez wants to do everything in his power to make sure they're all registered to vote for November of 2020, when the next election cycle for president comes around. So that's what I want to commit my time to expanding the base of power. Because when I look back at my legacy in the Congress of the United States, I look back to the 50,000 new citizens of the United States that live in the 4th Congressional District. And the power, it doesn't matter, no importa lo que me pasa a mí. Ellos siempre van a tener ese poder. Eso es como una educación. No se le puede quitar, no se le puede borrar, y tampoco se le puede borrar el poder que ellos han obtenido y que ellos tienen. Yo quiero incrementar ese poder. Estamos incrementando en números. Es el momento de que incrementemos en poder en este país. So that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to be committed to doing. But again, I want to say thank you to everybody here tonight for helping the good brothers and sisters at Maldef, and I wanted to give you my own personal experience. So if you clapped for me, if you've cheered for me, if I brought a smile to your face, If you've thought, I'm so happy he said that, remember something. Black lives do matter. Black people give up their lives so that we could have a Voting Rights Act. Black people gave up their rights so that we could have a Civil Rights Act. And God bless Maldef that they took advantage of the lives that black people gave up so that Latinos today could be before this microphone in this country. Let's all stay together. Let's all make this country better. Let's all stay united. Thank you so much for having me here this evening.
Thank you, Congressman, for that inspirational speech. And of course, your invaluable leadership to the House of Representatives. This evening, we celebrate the careers and contributions of 3 individuals who have dedicated their lives to protecting and expanding the civil rights of the Latino community. To introduce our first honoree, please welcome to the stage Maldef's President and General Counsel, Thomas Saenz.
Thank you, Claudia. And thank you, Congressman Gutierrez, for your inspiring words and for reminding all of us of the origins of this and every civil rights organization, and reminding all of us of our accomplishments, and reminding all of us of what we all know, which is that we need to continue to do all of this good work in the future for the children and grandchildren of everyone in this room and beyond. So thank you. You all are going to get tired of seeing me, but hopefully not in this first visit up to the stage, because it is my tremendous honor to introduce our first awardee of the evening. A good friend, not just to Maldef, not just to the Latino community, not just to civil rights, but to everyone, and a particular good friend of mine. Emilio Gonzales is the recipient of Maldef's Award for Corporate Social Responsibility. As Executive Director for Public Policy and Strategic Alliances at Verizon, Emilio oversees strategic initiatives and external affairs at Verizon and spearheads their outreach with national civil rights organizations and multicultural business groups nationwide. Now, here's the one thing that I have to pause over, of course, of his tremendous resume. And those of you who know me will know why. He is a graduate of Harvard. Emilio is an expert in telecommunications and technology policy issues with more than a quarter century of experience in both the public and private sectors. From 1990 to 1993, during the infancy of the internet, Emilio served as a policy advisor for the Congressional Office of Technology Assessment. He later served in the Clinton administration as Special Assistant for Technology at the Department of Commerce and as a Senior Advisor for Technology Education and Internet Policy to Education Secretary Richard Riley. Emilio is a member of the advisory board of the Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Institute at George Washington University and of the Executive Committee of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. Emilio lives here in Washington with his wife and his 2 daughters. And before I introduce the video, I will just say that in my 9 years as President and General Counsel of Maldef, I can think of no one in the corporate sector who has demonstrated greater commitment to the success of organizations like Maldef, to the success of civil rights, and to the success of our grand endeavor in this country of creating a nation of inclusion and human rights for all. He is an advisor to countless leaders of nonprofit organizations. He does it quietly, he does it without ostentation, but it has a real impact. And we know that he has that same impact inside of Verizon, where he is daily working to ensure that that corporation and its competitors and its allies live up to their potential to serve the needs of this nation. So it is my great honor now to introduce the video, tribute that Maldef has put together for Emilio Gonzales.
Emilio, just from the get-go, comes across as someone that is very smart, very knowledgeable, but just also very approachable. And he is someone that you could tell he is genuine about what he does and cares about what he does.
Emilio has a passion for knowledge and an intellectual curiosity, I think, second to none. And I could tell that he was a person that really was passionate about the emerging technology, particularly in the telecommunications area. He had served Secretary Dick Riley during President Clinton's administration as a technology advisor, and really was a person that you wanted to talk to about vision for the future.
He really is a great connector, a bridge builder, and sees concepts, but actually helps us build together the types of programs that actually brings them to fruition. And so we've had great success in working with Emilio on behalf of Verizon in many areas. And always he is thinking about how to get outcomes that can benefit both entities. And that's a great trait as we engage partners in corporate America today.
I learned so much from Emilio. Emilio is the kind of person that is so honest and so strategic. Somebody that I honestly call my friend, regardless of where he goes in the professional life or where I go in the professional life. I will always be reaching out to Emilio for strategic advice. And that's what makes him so unique. He's a person that makes you feel comfortable. He's a person that you can trust. He's a person that is going to tell you the truth. He's a person with whom you can disagree, but it's a person that also you can move agendas forward.
I've learned a lot from Emilio about technology. Emilio has a vision for technology and how it can impact our future lives. And moreover, Emilio has a unique gift for being able to explain technology in a way that most of us can understand.
Like many of us, I think there is that narrative of striver, that immigrant spirit, but also maximizing the opportunity in this country. And it's something he's done exceptionally well for himself, but he also takes on that responsibility in opening the doors for others like his mother, which is something I admire and share that quality with him.
Emilio is driven by a sense of community, wanting to help people, and he's been able to do that through his communications career. He's actually developed apps for stakeholder organizations to help them do the things that they're trying to do. I think Emilio has a real sense of community purpose and service.
I think Emilio's legacy really is in the community that he has created. And when I say the community, it's both with respect to organizations and what these organizations are helping to accomplish, but it also is just the people that he has connected with each other and the manner in which people work with each other.
His legacy will be all the people he's interfaced with that are better because they know him. And I would say especially his daughters and his wife and the family that he's created with.
Emilio, congratulations on this Maldef Award. Really, I've been in Washington, D.C. for 34 years. I cannot think of a single person more deserving than you. You've been a terrific source of support for Maldef over the years. Your commitment to helping Maldef serve as the Latino community's law firm is greatly appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maldef is extremely proud to present its Corporate Social Responsibility Award to Emilio Gonzales.
should have looked at this video before tonight. Buenas noches. Esto para mí es un gran honor y un recuerdo lindo que voy a llevar para siempre. Y le quiero dar mil gracias a la familia de Maldef por la defensa de nuestra comunidad, ahora más que nunca. Así que gracias. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you tonight, and forgive me, I never learned to use a teleprompter, so I'll just look at some notes, but this is very, very meaningful for us at Verizon, and we work hard at this. We don't always get it right, but when I think of the things we've done, I just wanted to mention a couple of things, and then really, I'm here to honor Maldef. Whether it's the apps that we've developed to help immigrant families integrate, know their legal rights, access pro bono services, whether it's the hundreds and hundreds of hours of pro bono work that our attorneys do to help immigrant families with everything from immigration to domestic violence. I've done some of this work, and I can tell you that even I find it daunting. Imagine what a poor mother who doesn't know the language and is scared has to face. So I'm very proud of that work. I'm very proud of our ongoing support for Dreamers. But my personal favorite was in 2013 on March 4th when we came out publicly and called on Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to citizenship. And we did, thank you. We didn't do this behind a trade association or a coalition. We did this on our CEO's letterhead. And I can tell you that today our position has not changed and will not change. So I want to say a word or two about Maldef, if I may. I did some homework thinking about tonight, and I learned many, many, many things, but I can summarize it into 2 points for you. One is, sadly, I'm older than the institution. But secondly, when you look at the record and you see the tremendous body of work and tireless dedication and the courage in district court, appellate court, and yes, before the Supreme Court of the United States, millions and millions of lives of hardworking, decent people who want nothing but the pursuit of happiness are helped by Maldef every day. And, you know, I can't think of a more noble cause that is done with such elegance. And if you think about it, it's really done in the pursuit of what I think is the fundamental tenet of democracy and of the legal system. It is those 4 beautiful words inscribed above the Supreme Court: equal justice under law. And that's what you do every day. So I thank you and I honor you, Tom, and Maldef. I want to say thank you to my friends who are here to support me tonight. I want to thank you for putting up with me over the years. I want to say thank you for inspiring me, supporting me when things have been hard. You've always been at my side, and I am not only lucky to have you, but I am better for it. I also want to say thank you to my 2 daughters who are here with me tonight, Jordan and Jade. They always keep me real. But more importantly, they keep me focused on what matters. And just like everyone here, it's familia, comunidad, and trying to do something better than, leaving things better than we found them. Finally, I want to say, really, I can't find the words. I mean, I am so grateful for what all of you do. So I want to thank all of you for coming out and supporting Maldef. Why? Because they can't do it alone, and no company can do it alone. This is going to require a complete village. But know this, and I want to leave you with a personal note, because this community is in a difficult place right now. I don't wake up worrying about whether I will be sent away. I don't wake up worrying if I will not see my children. But a lot of people do, and it's unjust, it's un-American. So thank you for supporting them, because I know the time will come where we will look back with pride on days like this and be grateful for organizations like Maldef. I finally want to say thank you to our honorees and congratulate them. They are two pillars of this community. That is, of course, Brent, Wilkes, and Marielena, Salinas. And I just want to leave you with that thought that we have to come together, all of us, and row in the same direction. And I want to leave you with one thing. I try to learn something new every day. And today I have learned it's usually not a good idea to follow Congressman Gutierrez up here. Good night, and thank you.
Gracias, Emilio. Thank you for your dedication and supporting Maldef and all the amazing work you do on behalf of Latinos in the United States. And now I'm excited to bring to the stage the chair of Maldef's Board of Directors, Regina Montoya. Please join me in welcoming Regina.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for being here this evening. I am nearing my tenure as the chair of the board of Maldef, and it has been such an honor and a privilege to have served as the chair of this extraordinary organization. Now, I have to tell you, I started as the chair about 2 years ago, and this was in spring of 2016. And I thought, boy, we're going to have this organization just clicking. We've already done so much good work. And then all of a sudden, the fall of 2016 happened. And from the issues that we have had, Maldef was at the center of so many of the emergency actions, from Senate Bill 4 in my home state of Texas, to voter suppression, to the termination of DACA, to ethnic and racial slurs being hurled routinely. And that was basically one day of the life of Maldef. Maldef has not had an opportunity to rest on any of its laurels. All the incredible cases that you have heard about, what we heard about from our Congressman Gutierrez, and what we have been doing. But then I was thinking about how do we put all of this together? And just recently I saw an amazing movie called Marshall. It was about a case that the legendary Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall handled. And when the case first starts out, when you see this movie, you see the Supreme Court Justice Marshall traveling across the country. He is going by train, he is going by bus, he is going by car, handling all these incredible cases. But this particular movie focused on just one, and that was the one in Connecticut. And it was in Greenwich, Connecticut, where a man had been accused of both rape and attempted murder. And Justice Marshall took that case on behalf of the NAACP. And he worked with a gentleman named Sam Friedman, who was an attorney and was his co-counsel on this case. And the two of them were a dynamic duo that did manage to have this man acquitted of these heinous crimes. And it was interesting because Mr. Friedman had never handled a criminal case before, but he knew it was right for him to be involved in this case. He knew he needed to be there, to stand by with Thurgood Marshall, to make sure that he was going to be able to make those kinds of legendary type of history. But one other thing that was important that Justice that Justice Thurgood Marshall said in this movie in particular was this. He said, we need to have others working with us, not only our NAACP lawyers, but we need to have attorneys across the country, making sure that we can double and triple the efforts to ensure that the civil rights of all would then be handled as well. And for me, that resonated so well as I thought about the work of Tom Science, whom you've already met, our general counsel and president, who travels across this country, usually by plane, maybe not taking it so often by car and bus and train, but all across this country, making sure that the rights of people are being defended. But I also think and his work, of course, coming from courts, not only in California, but all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. But his work and that of Maldef could not be accomplished without each one of you and the work that you have been providing and the support that you have been giving us, not only financially, but also those of you who are attorneys that have handled cases together with Tom and some of our other attorneys, making sure that the voices of the voiceless are being heard. And so I just want to take this moment, because we don't often take enough time to thank each one of you for making those changes and for helping Maldef accomplish the work that it is doing. Because as you have heard, Maldef is in so many instances standing between those people who need their rights defended and the precipice that they are facing. But one thing I was left with was this, as I did a little bit more research about what it was like for Justice Thurgood Marshall going across this country. People would say, as they were waiting for him, they would say, Thurgood's coming. And they knew that the rights of people would then be defended. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of literary license on this, and I would say this to all of you. For those that we want to ensure that the rights are being defended, Maldef is coming. And that's the important thing. And so with that, it is my very great pleasure and privilege to bring back, and you have already heard from Tom a little bit, and yes, he was casting aspersions on another school that's a little bit northeast of where he went to, but we won't even mention his school on that because he is actually surrounded by others that did go to the other school called Harvard. But anyway, but we are delighted. And this is someone that we have all come to admire so much for his tenacity, for his brilliance, and for his extraordinary determination and commitment to ensure that the rights of those that have been oppressed, to ensure that the civil rights of our fellow members of this United States of America, the Americans that we heard about, that Senator Gutierrez was talking about, and all of those who have come to see this country as their own. So with that, I'd like to bring up our General Counsel, our CEO, our President, Tom Science.
Thank you, Regina. As she mentioned, she has been the chair of the Maldef board for almost 2 years, and she will stay with us on the board, and we are so proud and happy to have her leadership. But I also say that to emphasize to all of you that was my boss. And now I have to play the role that I have played in so many of these dinners, which is to ask you all for more money. Now, I want to do this in a different way. You all have at your tables the instructions for our text to give. We have a goal tonight of raising from all of you additional support for our ongoing work. It's very easy to text to donate. You start a new text message to the number 41444. You enter in your text message Maldef, M-A-L-D-E-F, a space, the amount you wish to donate, another space, and then your name. Shortly on the screen, we'll have a visual sample of how you all are doing in reaching the goal and getting me off stage this time. But I do want to talk a bit about the work that we do. I don't know the derivation of the word keynote, but tonight, Congressman Gutierrez, in my mind, epitomized a keynote, because his themes have set the keynote for this evening. And I want to tell you a little bit that riffs off of his remarks. He talked about the creation of a Latino Opportunity District in the Chicago City Council and then in the Congress. I want to tell you that we're still doing that work today. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Bakersfield, California, the county seat of Kern County, California. Now, there's two things that you should know about Kern. Kern is the political base of Kevin McCarthy, who may be a potential successor to the current Speaker of the House. It is also Kern County, the home of the United Farm Workers. It is where Cesar Chavez is buried. It is where his headquarters is preserved as a monument. It gives you a sense, those two facts of Kern County. When I was there 2 weeks ago in Bakersfield on March 30th, the day before Cesar Chavez's birthday, and the day that was being celebrated in California, where his birthday is a holiday, we were there to announce a historic settlement that will create a second Latino Opportunity District on the Kern County Board of Supervisors. This was achieved after a long trial in December and a complete victory in that trial by Maldef lawyers under the Federal Voting Rights Act. That new opportunity in Kern County, you could feel the sense in the Latino community on that day we announced the settlement that will result this November in the first election in that second Latino supervisorial district. And where we learned this week that doing the kind of organizing that the congressman mentioned, the Latino leadership of Kern has united around a single candidate. And that's necessary because this first election will be a plurality election. Whoever gets the most votes wins the seat. No runoff for the top two candidates. And the danger was that the incumbent, a conservative white supervisor who had represented a very different district, but was going to run in this seat to retain his position on the Board of Supervisors. The danger was the Latino community would split the vote and hand victory to that incumbent. But this week, Latino leaders came together to unite behind a single candidate. It's that kind of court victory, followed by organizing in the community, that is going to create an opportunity like Congressman Gutierrez described in Chicago, in Kern County. And when I was there, you could feel in the Latino community the sense that this change could be transformational for that county. Getting that second seat on a 5-member Board of Supervisors, they saw as the beginning of the kind of change they want to see in Kern County. Now, I will tell you one last story about this case. In that trial in December, we had an all-woman Maldef team of lawyers, led by our experienced voting rights counsel, Denise Hewlett. But what they faced, as you face in any federal voting rights case, is the need to present lots of evidence on many, many different aspects of Kern County and its history, including historical discrimination. And one of the most extraordinary occurrences in that trial is that we put forward an eminent Stanford historian, Al Camarillo, who prepared a report documenting the extensive history of discrimination against the Latino community in Kern County. The defense for Kern County came forward and in response did not produce a historian, but they argued, I kid you not, that the Ku Klux Klan in Kern County was more of a morality policing organization than a white supremacist organization. And this was their attempt to refute an eminent Stanford historian who included in his report the KKK history in Kern. It's 2018, folks, and that's what we still face in court. But with teams like the one we had in Kern, we prevail and create those opportunities like Congressman Gutierrez described. Now I have to keep talking because y'all aren't at the goal yet. So that's a great victory. But I want to tell you about an ongoing case where we are currently facing a loss. Congressman Gutierrez, once again setting the keynote, talked about the importance of recognizing the importance of championing the rights of our transgender brothers and sisters in the military. I want to tell you about a case where Maldef is working with the Transgender Law Center in Indiana. This is a case that deals with a singular law. There's only one like it in the country, in Indiana, where in 2010, not last century, in 2010, the Indiana legislature passed a law that says you must be a United States citizen, no exceptions, to legally change your name. Now, if you think about this, I've told reporter after reporter, I've seen lots of anti-immigrant laws, some with very extensive impacts on large numbers of people. But this is the most dehumanizing law I have ever seen. Why? Because the ability to decide what you will be called is an essential attribute of being a human being. It is what distinguishes us from property, from animals, the right to decide what you will be called. And Indiana will deny it to you until you are a United States citizen, if you can get there. Now, our client is a transgendered immigrant from Mexico who, because of the dangers that his community faces, obtained asylum in this country, then married his wife and is now a lawful permanent resident, but still cannot change his name. So all of his IDs, federal and state, include the correct gender identifier, male, but his name remains his birth name, which is a quintessentially female name. So he has faced harrowing experiences with police officers who can't understand why this man has a woman's name, with nurses in an emergency room who can't understand why this man has a woman's name. And he faces the danger of having to out himself as transgender with each such interaction. Now, I told you this is the middle of the story because unfortunately the federal district court in Indiana denied our client the right to even be heard in challenging this discrimination because they concluded that though we named every official you can imagine, that none of our defendants could provide relief if the court were to decide that discrimination had to end. We went up to the Seventh Circuit. I personally argued the case before a panel of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. We lost 2-1. And that court too said, there is no court hearing in the federal system for your client in challenging this dehumanizing discrimination. So I've given you both sides, a great victory and one where we're losing. But we will go to the Supreme Court and seek review of that Seventh Circuit decision. But to give you a sense of the work that our staff does daily to confront the continued vestiges of exclusion that have been so scurrilously promoted by the current administration. I will tell you that that case I've described, its first name, its original name, was Doe versus Pence. Now, I wish I could tell you that the law was signed by Mike Pence as the governor. It was not. It was signed by Mitch Daniels. But our first defendant was Mike Pence. Obviously, he's moved to a different office and it has a different name now. But this is what we do daily. This is what you support with your partnership, with your collaboration, with your donations. And so I urge you, especially those of you who may be here as the guest of someone who bought a table. We welcome you. We appreciate your support. But whatever you would have spent on dinner, donate it through text to give. Y'all, it's $6,528. I don't want to be up here forever. All right, I'll tell you what, you guys get it to 7,000, I'll sit down. Come on now. 6528. You guys aren't going to get me to 7,000? I told you, my boss just introduced me. She's watching. She's taking notes. She's texting to give. 67, come on now. I just need 200 and somebody from Harvard tell me how much more do I? 272. All right, we're getting there. Folks, I want to sit down. I want to have a little dessert, have a little more wine before I come up here again. Get you all home at a decent hour. Give me some help. All right, now we're less than $100 away from where I said I will sit down. We're there. Thank you. Thank you all. My great pleasure now to welcome back to the stage our tremendous MC, Claudia Curiel.
The prompter isn't really where we are. They're still on this, so we're just going to give it a chance to keep increasing. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for supporting Maldef's work. I hope you all had the opportunity to contribute, and we look forward to Maldef continuing this campaign for many, many more years to come. Of course, it's an easy way to give what we can, so please continue to help this remarkable organization which fights for constitutional and civil rights day in and day out. Now it is with great pleasure that I introduce Maldef's second honoree this evening, a role model not only in my own industry, but for Latinos everywhere. Marielena Salinas, recipient of Maldef's Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Community Service Award. Marielena Salinas is one of the most recognized, trusted, and influential figures in broadcast journalism. For more than 3 decades, millions tuned in every evening to watch her reports as co-anchor and correspondent on Noticiero Univisión, the flagship daily news program of Noticias Univisión, where she also served as co-host of the news magazine Aquí y Ahora. Now an independent journalist and producer, she is currently host and executive producer of the news magazine program The Real Story with Marielena Salinas, which begins its 2nd season this year on the Investigation Discovery Network. Marielena has interviewed world leaders and celebrities. She has reported from the halls of power and from destitute barrios. She has been honored with far too many awards to list, but here are just a few. She has been inducted into the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. A graduate of UCLA, she holds honorary doctorates from American University and California State University. In 2012, Marielena became the first Latina to receive an Emmy Award for Lifetime Achievement from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And in 2014, she was honored with the Broadcast Legend Award from the Radio and Television News Association of Southern California. Most importantly, she was honored with a Peabody Award, a Walter Cronkite Award, and an Emmy and Gracie Award for her powerful 2014 news and documentary special, Entre el Abandono y el Rechazo, a primetime investigative report on the exodus of Central American children fleeing extreme violence and poverty to the United States, which judges praised as balanced and revealing. Marielena Salinas serves on the board of the Hispanic Scholarship Fund and has herself been awarding scholarships to journalism students for more than 2 decades through the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. Let's take a look at the life and work of Marielena Salinas.
I've learned so much from Marielena, most of all, how to never give up, to persevere, to stay true to your values, to your passion. And it is as true of her when I met her back in the 80s as it is today.
She's helped to empower people, encouraging people to register to vote, encouraging people to become citizens. And so the long-term impact of that is incalculable. We won't know what that is, but we can start to see a glimmer of it today as Latinos become more and more intertwined in the American fabric, and that is something that will be a legacy for Marielena.
Marielena's career is unparalleled. I cannot think of a single other journalist in the United States who has accomplished more than has Marielena Salinas. In terms of who she has interviewed around the world, how she is respected by journalists regardless of the language and they do their reporting, I think her greatest achievement and her legacy is that she has demonstrated what one can do with poise, with talent, and commitment.
I personally think that she is driven by family. I mean, she absolutely loves her family and is inspired by them. And I think that love and that support that she received, I think she's made it a priority to support, especially kids that are pursuing the career that she's really been so successful in.
I know that for her personally, her greatest achievement is really being a mother and being the mother of two extraordinary young Latinas who she is raised to be bilingual, bicultural, and fiercely proud of who they are and where they come from.
I think that what has driven Marielena throughout her career is a commitment to excellence, both for herself and making sure that she represents herself and her community, but also excellence in the sense of getting the story right and telling the story of people who sometimes don't have their stories told.
But I would say that her number one accomplishment is being the longest running female anchor on a network newscast in the history of the United States. And that makes us all so proud.
I think that her legacy is a next generation of journalists, both men and women, in English and in Spanish. I think for the first time, you could see someone that looked like you, and you could look at the future and say, hey, I want to do that too. So I think for sure another generation of journalists. I think that she's also set the bar high for what news is really. Sometimes news in Spanish have not been given the same kind of credit as newsrooms in English, and she by far has really equaled that playing field. And so when you think about an institution of journalism, you really think of Marielena Salinas.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Marielena Salinas.
It makes me so emotional to see that, you know, because thank you, Emma. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone that participated in that video. It brought me a lot of special memories. And thank you to Maldef for including me in tonight's events and honoring me with such a distinguished award. Also, congratulations to Emilio. Congratulations to Brent for a very deserving award this evening. You know, it's interesting that whenever I receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, I realize that I'm being recognized for whatever I've done in my lifetime. And according to that video, I think I've done a lot. But, and I really appreciate it, but it also encourages me to live another lifetime because there's still so much to do. And what have I done? Well, pretty much the same thing that all of you have done, so many of you here. As I look around this room, I see so many people that have dedicated so much of their life and that have put so much of their heart into our community, whether it's through activism or civic engagement or the legislative process, or as myself and other colleagues in the media, by telling their stories, using our voice to guide them and speak on their behalf. We do it, why? Because we care. Because we know the challenges that they face, we understand their potential, and we see the possibilities. I know that's what drove me to become so passionate about what I do when I started my career way back in Channel 34 in 1981, in the early 80s. Some of you might remember, and he's probably thinking, why are you pointing to me? Okay. Back then, there were only 14 million Hispanics in the country. The high school dropout rate was somewhere around 35%. Political representation was almost non-existent. The Latino vote wasn't even counted at the time, and we had very few amigos in high places. But we've come a long way since then. Now there's almost 60 million Latinos in the US, depending on who's doing the counting. The high school dropout rate among Latino students is less than 10%, believe it or not. It's amazing. Now we have thousands of elected officials at the local, state, and federal level. The Latino vote is making a difference in elections, and we have lots of amigos in high places. And by that, I mean Hispanics in leadership positions, on boards, in the corporate world, in education, in medicine, in the judiciary, even in space. We have our share of astronauts. Now, all that is reason to celebrate, and we should celebrate. But I would have never imagined that after all those achievements, we would be facing a setback like the one we're facing now, like the one the community is facing now. I never imagined that in 2018 we would be living in a country in which our kids are afraid to go to school because they don't want to be bullied, or they're afraid of not finding their parents when they come home, or that so many of our youth would be living in fear of being deported and having their dreams truncated, that our immigrant population would be treated as invaders and criminals and rapists and drug dealers. We'll never let them live that down, right, Reese? Or that it would be, that I would be told to go back to your country, but wait a minute, I was born in California. When did we secede? I didn't know that. I call it a setback because I do believe it's temporary. There's something, it is. There's something that no one can take away from us, and that is our drive and our commitment to empower our community. We have our leaders rolling up their sleeves, ready to fight. We have our dreamers that are taking the risks, that are determined to demand a future in the country where they were raised. Setbacks have a way of making us stronger and more resilient. I know for my part, I have started a new chapter in my career and my life, and the freedom allows me to be even more involved. I should say freedom like this, even more involved in the process of empowering my community. And I am committed to continue telling their stories to whoever will listen in whatever forum I find available, because as long as I have a voice, I will continue to use it on their behalf, and I'm sure that all of you will also. So I just want to end by thanking my friends, Emma, Basie, for being here. Of course, I want to thank Maldef for this distinguished award. And I really can't get out of this stage without saying thank you to Univision, because even though they're not my employers anymore, they certainly will always be part of my family. You're engraved in my heart.
Thank you, Marielena, for your tireless efforts to represent and tell the stories of the Latino community. Our final award tonight goes to Brent A. Wilkes, last but not least, recipient of Maldef's Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Community Service Award. Brent A. Wilkes was Chief Executive Officer of the League of United Latin American Citizens, better known as LULAC, the nation's largest and oldest Latino organization from April 1997 through February 2018. He was responsible for managing LULAC's national policy, legislative advocacy, program development, and resource development programs. He joined LULAC in 1988 and worked in various capacities, including Special Projects Coordinator, Resource Developer, and Director of Policy and Development. He was named National Executive Director in April 1997. As CEO of LULAC, Wilkes worked to improve the quality of life for Latinos by guiding the organization's extensive legislative public policy and service activities throughout the United States and Puerto Rico. Wilkes is widely credited with strengthening LULAC's programs, advocacy efforts, events, and revenue since opening its national office here in Washington in 1996. Under his stewardship, LULAC's revenue tripled. Its staffing grew from just 1 employee to more than 20, and the organization became nationally recognized for its leadership role on key issues affecting Latinos. In 2004, Brent helped launch the LULAC Leadership Initiative to strengthen the organization's programs and services at the grassroots level. The initiative resulted in the establishment of 58 community technology centers and 80 high school leadership programs. Brent is a board member of the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, which advances the inclusion of Latinos in corporate America at a level commensurate with Latino economic contributions. A recipient of numerous acknowledgments and awards, he is most proud of his LULAC Youth Advocate of the Year Award, which he received in 2003. Brent and his wife are also proud parents of 2 boys. Let's take a look at the video Maldef produced to pay tribute to Brent's work.
It's actually hard to remember when I first met Brent, because Brent is one of those people that you feel that you know forever. He's the kind of person that really pays full attention when he's talking to the president or when he's talking to us students for guidance. He's that kind of personality, so I feel that I know Brent forever.
I first met Brent about 5 years ago. He was quiet and very careful with his words. But when he started talking about things that he cared deeply about, empowering Latinos in the digital age, I knew I had found a friend and a fellow warrior. Together, we worked on making technology more accessible for Latinos. We focused our energies on making sure Latino kids had the internet access they need to do their homework, because the future belongs to the connected. And Brent understood no matter who you are or where you live, you need access to modern communications to have a fair shot at 21st century success.
I think Brent's legacy is in the people he's worked with and mentored and advised. It's in the legislative and policy accomplishments to which he's contributed. I think that his legacy is quite well established, and he's still going. So we know to look for more from him in the future, even if not at LULAC.
He's just a person that is always intellectually curious about all the different issues that are affecting the community. He's always asking the tough question. He's always bringing attention to the most serious debates in the nation. He's always trying to bring people together. He's always trying to find ways to do better in the ways that we implement our campaigns, in the ways that we work together. I think that's the legacy that Brent has put in place, and there is so much to see from Brent.
Brent's greatest achievement really is his longevity. And again, sometimes that is viewed as a strike against someone. Somehow it indicates that they are not testing the boundaries. And I think that's unfair. Brent has tested the boundaries, acted with courage and creativity. And I think it is just one example of what he's done over years and years.
Just witnessing the kind of human being that he is, always conducting himself with dignity and with respect, always with humility, always respecting everybody, always listening to every single person that crosses his path. I have seen him spend so much time with very young Latinos, high schoolers, or people, or volunteers, or interns. And Brent is that person that is always listening, is always providing feedback when he asks. And I really like that part of Brent Wilkes, the level of humility that he brings to his advocacy work. I really respect that.
I think Brent has been very helpful to me in understanding better how Washington, D.C. works. Certainly, when I came to Maldef as President and General Counsel, my experience in the Capitol was extremely limited. And Brent is certainly one of the folks to whom I turned and who provided readily his advice and guidance through both his words and his example.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Brent A. Wilkes.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for this generous recognition and for that wonderful video. Tom, Hector, Claudia, thank you for the introduction. Even Jessica and so many others. This award really means so much to me, especially because it's being presented by an organization that is historic in its achievements and is fighting day in and day out on behalf of the Latino community.
And because your general counsel, Tom Science, in my opinion, is one of the greatest Latino civil rights leaders of our generation. So it means a lot. He's also a man that I consider a great friend and colleague and somebody I've loved to work with. You know, I want to congratulate the other honorees this evening. Marielena Salinas has been just an inspiration for us for so many years, our voice really and the way our community has learned so much. And then of course Emilio and Verizon and the commitment that he has made to our community, not just financially, but that advice that he's been giving our organizations for so long. And I want to congratulate Congressman Gutierrez. What an outstanding career, and really the champion of our community, the one who's always fought and defended us, even when others would not. So thank you so much and congratulations. We should be honoring this man tonight. You know, I want to accept this award not for myself, but on behalf of the outstanding efforts of the thousands of dedicated LULAC members, staff, allies, and supporters who really deserve the credit for the organization over the past 30 years. They really belong to those people. Over this time, I've had just this amazing opportunity to work with such talented and dedicated and inspiring individuals, and many of them are here in this room tonight. And I just count myself amongst the most fortunate people on this earth, simply for having the chance to work alongside you. It's been amazing. And as we strove to achieve and advance the cause of the Latino community in the United States, it's been really something that I've been grateful for. And I want to give thanks to all that have made my career at LULAC so meaningful, especially to, of course, to our outstanding dedicated staff and to the extraordinary grassroots members that LULAC has, who are really the heart and soul of the organization and have made this organization what it is. And of course to amazing allies like Maldef and Tom Science and Hector Sanchez and the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda and so many others who've been so instrumental in our success. I especially want to thank my wife, the love of my life. She's been there for me and my two boys, George and John, for putting up with these long hours, constant travel. That was just part of the job. That's what we all have had to live with in order to do what we feel that we've had to do. When I became executive director of LULAC National in 1997, the organization had only one staff person, that was me, and we had an annual budget of about $300,000. By 2017, our staff has grown to 25 talented team members with a budget of over $5 million a year, and a portfolio of programs and advocacy, thank you, which now serve over 1 million people a year. It's just astounding the amount of people that we've been able to help. But to be honest with you, it's the individuals that we've helped, those individual stories that have really been the inspiration for me, hearing how one person can be impacted by the work of the organization and how that can make such a difference in their life, and then how they can go on and do amazing things themselves. I was just talking to Grisa earlier. Congratulations, Grisa, for your promotion at United We Dream. But she was part of a LULAC council when she was a young person, and she's now doing outstanding things on behalf of all dreamers. So congratulations to you. So a lot of folks have asked me, you know, why did you choose to work for the Latino community? And my answer has always been kind of what Marielena was talking about, which is that the Latino community is the fastest growing population in this country. I actually was there when it was 12 million. I'm glad to be here now when it's 58 million people, soon to be a third of the US population. And the most impactful thing that any one of us could do is to work to make sure that the Latino community is successful as it most possibly can be, because that can make this country successful. And I really truly believe that there's no more important policy priority than helping unlock the full potential of the entire Latino community and to bring that potential to bear on the success of this country. The success of Latinos will ensure the nation's success for generations to come. There's another reason, though, that I stayed at LULAC, and that was because of the family that you have in this community. It's just an amazing group of people. The love and the caring and the sharing and the camaraderie have been something that's just been enduring to my heart all this time. So I hope that I've done my small part in helping Latinos achieve the American dream, and I hope that my example as a non-Latino fighting on behalf of the Latino community will encourage others from diverse backgrounds to join the cause, because you don't have to be Latino to care about Latino issues. Thank you. Now, I do remain deeply troubled and even outraged that in this day and age we have politicians in Washington who've done the opposite of bringing us together and actually are exacerbating racial tensions and ethnic divisions for their short-term political gains. It's something that deeply angers me. A lot of people say, you never see Brent get angry. Well, you should see me watching some of the politicians on TV, because I get seriously angry when they diss this community, when they say the hateful things. And I'm not going to repeat it because Marielena already mentioned it, but that has hurt me deeply, and it's something that's made me extremely angry. But it's made me want to fight back as well. Before I came here, unfortunately, my father passed a little more than a week ago. And many of you have been giving me your support and love, and I really appreciate that. It's really helped my family heal, and it's helped so much overcome the grief at his loss. And actually, I wanted to share that during the service that we had from on Saturday, so many people came that there was a line out the door to get in, and we actually had to cut it off. And the Reverend was like, boys, this is like an old-fashioned service. We'd never get this many people coming. And he said, your father must have really been a great man and impacted so many people. And he was. And so, he had a life that was well-lived, and he did a lot to help so many others. And that's why they came to his memorial service. And as I came back to Washington, I was reflecting on the opportunity to be part of this great award ceremony this evening. And I reflected on my career and on the many advocates, all of you who I have worked and fought alongside. And I wonder what historians will say about us, about the extraordinary time that we're in, where we have to defend our community and that we have to make a difference. Will they say that we did enough to help dreamers, to help the immigrant families striving to live that American dream? Will they say we used all of our God-given talent and our drive and our energy to help Latino families get a better education and live a better life? Will they say that we helped this country move along the arc of moral justice and convince Americans to judge a person or by the content of their character and not the color of their skin, the language they speak, where they were born, the God they pray to, or the people they love? I can't really answer these questions because our work is not yet finished, and the battle for the soul of America is still engaged. I will say, Congressman Gutierrez, you've had a great life and you've done an amazing work, so he's safe. The rest of us, we got some work to do still. But what I can tell you is that I've been immensely privileged to have fought alongside you. It's been my life's honor. And despite this award being called the Lifetime Achievement Award and LULAC putting out an unfortunate press release saying I'd retired, I have no intention of giving up now or quitting. You can count on my efforts to continue to fight for fairness and justice for the Latino community for many years to come. Thank you so much for this honor. Thanks for the award tonight, and thank you, Maldef.
Thank you, Brent, for your dedication empowering the Latino community. And now I'd like to welcome back to the stage Maldef's President and General Counsel, Thomas Saenz.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. I commence this last visit to the stage with thanks for those who put this evening together. First and foremost, I want to thank Claudia Curiel for your, again, very capable, steady stewardship of this evening. You've already met our board chair, Regina Montoya, but we have other current and former Maldef board members in the room. I'd like them to stand to thank them for all that they've done and continue to do over the years for Maldef and our mission. We have a dinner committee, of course, that put many hours into meeting telephonically with our staff and helping us to ensure that tonight would be a success in the support of Maldef's ongoing mission. If I could ask dinner committee members to please stand and accept our gratitude. When I was up here previously, I mentioned our dedicated staff, which daily sacrifices through hard work and certainly less than market wages, but to champion a cause now 50 years and running that you've heard so many of our speakers tonight identify as critical to the future of this nation. I then think that our staff is critical to the future of our nation. So I'd like our current and former staff members to please stand so we can acknowledge your efforts as well. I also want to thank those who put together this evening's events. We always have such terrific honorees, and I'm helped in selecting those honorees by these folks and others. And then they put together a terrific event that runs seamlessly. I want to thank Gina Montoya, Sandra Hernandez, Antonio Marcano, Cynthia Gutierrez Alvarez, Heaven Ocampo, Jose Delgado, Aaron Eng, and others who have participated in putting tonight together. Thank you very much. I already said, we get such terrific honorees, and tonight is no exception. Indeed, I believe that each of them with their remarks has really contributed to an evening of inspiration, of challenge for the future, an evening that can help all of us to recommit to the important work. So I want to again thank, for all that they've done and continue to do, our good friend, the tenacious and creative Emilio Gonzales, our inspiring pioneer, Marielena Salinas, and the wise and committed Brent Wilkes. And although he's no longer here, I do want to thank the incomparable Luis Gutierrez for his remarks at the beginning that really did set the keynote for tonight. You have heard that this is our 50th anniversary. So this event next year will be a 50th anniversary gala. That means that we have been around a long time. As Marielena said to me, it means Maldef could now join AARP. The American Association of Retired Persons. But like so many who have announced retirements tonight or have had it announced for them, Maldef is not going to retire. We are going to continue the important work that we do. But one consequence, certainly, of being 50 years old is that some of the folks who have contributed to Maldef's achievements are passing on. So tonight I want to take a moment to recognize one of my predecessors who died last month at the young age of 69. There have been 8 people who, over our 50 years, have had the privilege and honor of being president of Maldef. Joaquin Avila was president and general counsel of Maldef from 1982 to 1985. Now that was 3 years, critical 3 years. But he had previously been one of our strongest litigators, a pioneer in the field of voting rights in particular, a genius, recognized as such by the MacArthur Foundation after he left Maldef, and continued to work on behalf of the voting rights of Latinos and others throughout the country. His creativity translated into not just courtroom victories, all the way to the Supreme Court multiple times, but in pioneering legislation in California, the California Voting Rights Act, that makes it easier and quicker for us to challenge exclusionary voting schemes in that state. That came from Joaquin's mind. Joaquin Avila was a pioneer in other respects as well. I mentioned previously my slight antipathy toward Harvard. That's because I'm a Yalie. And when I went to Yale and started as a freshman in 1983, I became aware of Joaquin Avila not as a lawyer, as a litigator, as a civil rights leader or as the then president of Maldef, but I became aware of him because he was one of the first 3 Mexican Americans to ever be admitted and to attend Yale University. He began there in 1966, and when I think about that career of being a civil rights pioneer starting when he was 17, all the way through his untimely death at 69, I cannot help but be inspired by Joaquin G. Avila and his example. He died in March. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of former President and General Counsel of Maldef, Joaquin Avila. Thank you. We've heard so many inspiring remarks tonight that are necessitated by the unprecedented situation that we find ourselves in this country. A situation in which we have a president who seems to have an unspoken but not very subtle agenda of ensuring that Latinos are marginalized, excluded, even whitewashed out of our country's continued course of history. He has done that, if you will recall, by appointing a cabinet with not a single Latino member, something we hadn't seen in decades, only changed by the withdrawal of his labor secretary nominee. We've seen that in a first year of judicial nominations that are at an unprecedented pace, but that included only one Latino candidate to be a judge. With the result, for example, that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, a court of appeals that serves the states of Texas, Mississippi, and Louisiana, dominated by Texas, a state where 40% of the population is Latino. A circuit that once had 3 Latino judges sitting and hearing cases. Today, that Fifth Circuit has 0 Latino or Latina judges hearing cases from the state of Texas or elsewhere in that circuit. That a result of Donald Trump's nomination of non-Latinos to fill the several vacancies in that Court of Appeals. We've seen it, of course, in his divisive tweets, in his insulting comments off the cuff, in his demeaning executive orders that seem to target the Latino community above all others. Yes, he targets other communities. He is a president of exclusion, of division. But there seems to be a special place in his unspoken but not subtle agenda for the Latino community. Perhaps because we are and have been the second largest racial ethnic group in the country, the largest minority group in the country for over a decade. Perhaps it's because he sees some advantage for himself and those who support him in demeaning a community that too many view as a threat. We have seen in his policies this agenda to marginalize and even whitewash Latinos. For him to have followed the legal advice of an attorney general who doesn't seem to understand much about the law and to care even less about the Constitution. To follow that legal advice and end or attempt to end deferred action for childhood arrivals, the DACA initiative from the Obama administration, is a despicable manifestation of this agenda. Creating consciously an unprecedented atmosphere of fear and confusion in immigrants and the family members of immigrants and the community friends of immigrants across the country. Perhaps the most notable achievement, quote unquote, of this administration so far, creating a campaign of rhetorical warfare against his own people in this country. We have seen it in his accusation that millions of Latinos fraudulently voted against him in the 2016 election and deprived him of what would otherwise be, in his mind, a majority in the popular vote. We've seen it in his creation of a commission given the task of finding voter fraud that is not to be found. A commission that he fairly rapidly drew to a close in a Friday night executive order to close the Pence-Kobach Commission. We've seen it most recently in his quite literal attempt to whitewash this country, and particularly Latinos, out of it through a decision hastily reached, inadequately researched, and without any support in logic or constitution, in a decision to include in Census 2020 a report of the citizenship of every household member across the country. Now, there are challenges to the inclusion of that citizenship question in court. These are meritorious challenges soon to be joined by a Maldef lawsuit seeking to prevent the inclusion of a citizenship question on Census 2020. But the decision itself is a clear indication of that agenda from this administration. But in the Latino community, this is not a new foe. We have met Donald Trump by a different name and a different mean in the past. We met him in Texas prior to that Plyler versus Doe decision described in the introduction of Maldef, when that state decided that undocumented immigrants could be excluded from attending school or could be charged tuition, tantamount to excluding them from attending school. We've met Donald Trump before in a different name and a different mean in California with Proposition 187 that would have sought to prevent every immigrant from obtaining services to which they were entitled. We've met Donald Trump before by a different name and a different mean in Arizona in 2010 with the enactment of SB 1070, championed by Governor Jan Brewer. The point is, we've met this foe and defeated it. Defeated him, defeated her, defeated whatever figure it took. And we will do that again. And we will do that bearing a special responsibility. For as the chief target, one among many, but the chief target of this campaign of exclusion and division, as the largest minority group in the country, we have a special responsibility to step forward and lead. That begins by ensuring that every one of us is counted in Census 2020, whether or not a citizenship question is included. Donald Trump doesn't want us counted. We therefore must be counted. Our leadership extends beyond the census. I would call it the 3 R's of the Latino mission today. Yes, the first R we hear repeated so often. It is resistance. Ensuring that the attempt to normalize conduct, views, speech that even 5 years ago would have been rejected as inappropriate for this country. To resist policies that set new precedents in seeking to retrogress the nation, in seeking to damage the Constitution. But beyond resistance, the second R is revitalization. That is how we at Maldef see our 50th anniversary, not about retiring, but about revitalizing. We must be inspired in the Latino community to take action against what we face. We've seen that in the speeches tonight. We see it in the efforts of organized communities like the Dreamers and others to respond strongly to what we face. Revitalization means that we will not shrink away from our responsibility, but embrace it with vigor and move it forward with great, great commitment. But finally, the third R. In the Latino community, we have a special responsibility of redirection. That's not just resisting, that's taking that revitalization and forging a new path for this country, a path that recognizes the legacy of our Constitution, despite a history that too often has been marked by its refusal to conform to the words of the document. We must forge a path that is truer to those words. We must forge a path as our community grows that embraces inclusion of all communities, regardless of gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, ancestry, nation of origin, and immigration status. We must forge a path beginning this year. We must forge a new path for this nation to ensure that what we have seen a campaign to whitewash us out of existence, out of acknowledgement, out of inclusion, is the beginning for us of a redirection, a new path where the Latino community takes on its special responsibility and fulfills it as we have in facing this same foe in the past, with great strength, with great unity, with an embrace of other communities to bring us all to where our country truly needs to be. As I said, in Maldef's 50th year, we will celebrate, we will commemorate, but most importantly, we will continue with the cooperation, collaboration of all of you and beyond in our mission to resist, to revitalize, and to redirect this great nation. With that promise, thank you all for being here this evening, and we look forward to our continued cooperation and partnership.
Thank you, Tom. Your dedication and service to Maldef is greatly appreciated. And on behalf of myself and everyone here, we deeply thank you for your leadership. With that, we conclude the 2018 Maldef Gala. On behalf of myself, the Maldef Board of Directors, and its staff, we truly appreciate you being here with us today. We appreciate your support and encouragement to bettering the communities around us. And remember that Maldef can only continue to grow and provide a voice as the leading Latino legal voice for civil rights in America with your support. Thank you again, and have a great evening. We hope to see you all again next year at Maldef's 50th Anniversary Awards Gala. Gracias y buenas noches.